Welcome back to Center Stage on WDL TV 38, Detroit's urban TV station. As we said earlier before we went on a break, that we're discussing the call-in of Senator Edward Kennedy, and one of his call-in was on health care for all. And we have now Michael Joseph, who is the Regional Communication Coordinator.
UAW Region 1A.
UAW Region 1A Communications Coordinator, and former State Rep, Republican John Garfield, also a Vietnam veteran. Yeah. Just to get quickly your take on Ted Kennedy's legacy on this healthcare issue and how it's playing out across the country in our towns and our cities before we get into the meat of the issue.
Well, I think, first of all, that he was forward-thinking because he could see healthcare, the services that would be needed in the future. The other thing, not only was he forward-thinking, but he was a bridge builder. And I think this is the important part in healthcare. The issue of today is building those bridges to come to common ground. And I think that's what he did, as you have noticed here this past week, how people have said, now where will healthcare go in what direction because of his loss. So he was a great bridge builder and consensus builder.
Michael, Senator Kennedy the late Senator Kennedy was a strong supporter of labor.
Yes, he was. As a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to meet Senator Kennedy and look him in the eye and tell him thank you. Wish I could have had a longer conversation with him. And I say again, thank you, Senator Kennedy, for all the work you've done. And at the conference we were at, he challenged us as labor that we had to get involved. He said, I can only do so much. And that's what we all need to do around this community, around this country, is to get involved and make the changes. And just to talk about what you were saying, I also look at him as being compassionate, that it wasn't political with his ideals about health care. Walter Reuther talked about health care in 1945, along with President Truman and Roosevelt, talked about having national health care. And Ted Kennedy, again, it was more about passion, compassionate, and doing it for the right reasons.
Let me explore this issue quickly with you before I come back to John. Would Labor would you say he was the strongest friend of Labor in the U.S. Senate?
He was one of our strongest friends, and he was, again, on the committee he was on. He was on the Labor, Pension, and Health and Education. He was the chair of that committee, and he fought for labor, for working men and women around the country, for the many different issues, whether it was civil rights, dealing with the Civil Rights Act in 64, the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights was 63, Voting Rights in 64, and again the renewal of the Voting Rights Act, along with the American Disabilities Act that he had done, the Family Leave Act. All those things help working people. So yes, he was a friend of labor, and he was a friend of all Americans.
John, the question is, in terms of, given that he's no longer around, what is going to happen? I think because there's been speculation that this whole healthcare battle has been thrown into limbo now that he's gone.
Well, I don't think so. I think that the issue itself is so important. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's our issue. It's an American issue from top to bottom. I guess the easiest way to say it in when you're in legislation is that the devil is in the details. With a 1,000-page bill and a lot of vagueness to it, I think this is like, as you see, the public scare. You think the
Obama administration is or the administration and Congress is at fault for crafting a 1,000-page bill that you said is very vague?
Well, to some extent. In the legislature, we have a situation, and it's called promulgation of the rules. What this is when the state passes a law, and it goes to the Senate for concurrence, and then it goes on to the governor's signature. We all feel that we have done our due diligence, and when that bill is gone to a department for what's called implementation, they have their attorneys and their department head come out and they read the bill and says, it doesn't say this and it doesn't say that, so therefore we can do this. Well, I'll get a call from a constituent saying, guess what just happened to me? And it was not the purpose of the law, that being the purpose of the law. It was administratively written in. And with the vagueness and without the details, I think people are reluctant. I think this is what you see with senior citizens. They've heard that $550 billion over 10 years, I believe, would be taken from Medicare. Well, it is such an encompassing bill, and with the vagueness, they want to be assured that they're not going to be, have anything taken from them. And we have mistakes there. I don't think there's any difference in our opinion, the system is breaking, and you cannot continue to do the same things and expect a different result.
I want to talk about the what I call the subterfuge in this whole thing, and how the distractions in how of the in terms of the messaging. But is that how Labour views what he's saying?
Yes, I wanted to jump in there, being respectful, but I wanted to jump in there because it's not that the seniors are being so much frightened, it's the lies they're being told, the misappropriation of the truth. For example, the death panels, that's not even in the bill, but yet and those senators should be, Senator Grassley should be ashamed of himself, saying those things that are not in the bill. For example, illegal immigrants getting health care free, that is not in the bill. Now, there are some problems with this bill. We're talking about something that's going to take Republicans and Democrats working together for the good of all people. But remember, when they first started out, they said this is going to be Obama's Waterloo. They said we can destroy him with that. They were not looking at, talking about Republicans now, they were not looking at this as something we need to do to reform health care for all Americans. They use it as a political tool to go against a popular president. And that has to stop. We need to tell people the truth.
Well, as you know, I don't prescribe to that fear-mongering myself, no matter who it is. Several years ago, when we had Medicare Part B prescription drug coverage, I was the only state representative that opened up his office called Area Aging 1B in Oakland County, and we signed them up because they were fearful of what the government was doing. Whenever the government does something, especially the seniors and prescription drugs specifically. Mm-hmm. Now, from what I've read in the bill, by the way, where it comes to pharma or the prescription drug, what do they call it, the generic drugs, I believe they're absolutely correct. We're paying
save a lot of money
67% more than foreign countries. So who's paying for this? But most of the companies are run by foreign companies. So we have to deal with that. President Obama already said, if you have your health care and you are happy with that you can keep your health care. Now, here's the inherent problem that I see with that in the single-payer system. There's no way that the private sector will be able to compete against the government with buckets of taxpayer money.
Well, it's not going to be buckets of taxpayer money.
I mean the administrative.
It's free market. I mean the notion of free market enterprise, the trust of free market enterprise is competition, though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
so what's wrong with it?
Well, just let me address it real quickly. The single-payer system says that your rate's going to be based on the Medicare rates. Private insurance wants to, and the Republicans want to make it so that you can negotiate with the providers like the private insurance companies are doing now, and that's when people's rates will go up. And that's what we're saying why the single payer is a better option to go with.
Well, as you know, two of the things that I hear that I dislike, and I just can't find anybody who does it.
Let's just hold that thought. When we come back on the second segment, we'll deal with that. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back, and you're watching Center Stage on WADL TV 38.